village outside of Srebrenica where I had happy childhood, but that did not last for long. When I finished the elementary school, things went wrong, and the war started, and I had to run for my life. I ended up in Srebrenica with my family. I spent 3.5 years under the siege, starving. There was no even enough water. So many were killed, so many were wounded. And the United Nations arrived in April 1993, and we thought that was the end to all of our troubles. But how wrong we were. In July 1995, the Bosnian Serb army unfortunately attacked Srebrenica again in spite of the UN presence, and overran the town and its surrounding. And people had to run for their lives, and majority of people, mainly women and children, ran to the UN base of the Dutch battalion. My mother, my younger brother, grandparents, they all went there hoping to be protected by the UN. While I, my father, my twin brother and my uncle, we were afraid to go there because we were afraid to be separated and killed. And so we had to go the other way through the forest. We had to walk for like 60 miles. And just at the very beginning, I lost the contact with my father, my twin brother and my uncle when the shooting started, and I never saw them ever again. I spent additional 6 days and 6 nights being hunted like an animal. I was a 19-year-old. I was very thin. I did not eat anything for 6 days except just for a little sugar, which I used with water to energize myself. I did not sleep at least for 8 nights. And the lack of sleep was really driving me crazy, and I could not wrap my head around what was happening. I was constantly scared. I just wanted to live and survive, and I could not understand why that was happening to me. I was being hunted for what I was, and as everybody else, which I could not understand, because this is Europe. Just in half hour by plane, you would be in Vienna, or driving for 9 hours, you would be in Vienna, you know. And our neighbors are Italians, and it's just it's beyond ridiculous. And after 6 days of being hunted, I got to the free territory. And I reunited with my family after 10 days. I found my mother, my younger brother, and my grandparents. Sadly, my father, my twin brother, and my uncle were not there. And it took many, many years to find out. When the first mass graves were discovered, I knew that they did not survive. My father was buried in 2003. I remember that day we got near the cemetery, where a small town populated by Serbs, and the local Serb police stopped us because there was a traffic jam. As we were getting off the bus and walking on the side of the street, there were local Serbs literally chanting and calling names and spitting. I was going to bury my father, and you know, they were in that crowd. I saw some war criminals, you know, who were spitting on me as I was going to bury my father. You know, can you imagine that? You know, I mean, I felt like no human being that day. And 2 years later, I buried my twin brother. I had literally to put his bones in the grave, and I barely survived. And if someone had told me then just in a 4 years I would be back here to tell the story at the memorial to hundreds of thousands, I would say that it's impossible, because when I buried my father and my twin brother, those 2 burials almost finished me off. And absolutely have changed my life forever. And ever since, every day, every minute of every day is about this genocide. And I'm 100% dedicated to this story. This work here is not work. I take it as a mission. And if one day I feel it as work, I would the first thing in the morning I would leave it and find some other job. So this year we are marking the 25th anniversary, which is very important for us. We have over 6,000 of the identified and buried people at the cemetery. And my memorial, Srebrenica Genocide Memorial, is trying to connect globally with similar museums, with similar places. And our task here is to educate and work to make sure that the future genocide is prevented.